Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Football Guys Best Ball Show. As always, I am Dave Kluge, joined here with James Brimacombe. And good news, James. Joe Bryant, he gave us a 3-episode pilot experience. He said you guys get 3 episodes, and if it's good, we'll keep it going from there. Well, guess what? We got extended. Here we are, episode 4. So looks like you're going to be seeing us on the YouTube page for a little bit. But James, how was your weekend? Anything fun? Puppy 2, you got any fun stories for us? What's going on?
Yeah, just doing the family man thing. So just running kids around, doing all that, and yeah, just drafting best ball teams when I can. Usually, Monday to Friday is kind of when I like to get my drafts in. So took the weekend off. Of course, they released the puppy on a Friday, right? So that's if they release that on a Monday, I'm in better shape. So yeah, I'm just putting along trying to get my entries in there.
Yeah, and there's still, less than 50% full. So, if you don't like the high stakes stuff, BBM3 is a little bit too. I'm talking to the viewers here, but if BBM is just a little bit too high stakes for you, and you can't justify $25, hop in the puppy 2. Very similar rake, just $5 entry, 75,000 first place. And we thought about doing that today. Doing the puppy 2 just to show you, but really the strategy in the puppy 2 and Best Ball Mania 3 is going to be exactly the same. So we're going to stick with another BBM3 entry today. And we've tried out some different things where we've auto picked. We tried, just let's not draft any quarterbacks or tight ends for the first 12 rounds and see how that works out. We've tried out some different strategies. And today we left it up to the viewers. We ran a poll this morning asking which strategy you wanted us to implement. And HeroRB won by a landslide. So for anyone not familiar, HeroRB, it's pretty self-explanatory by the name, but you want to draft a running back in the first 2 rounds. And then that's your anchor. You're drafting that guy, and that's going to be your RB1. And then we're not even going to be looking at RB2 until a little bit later in the draft. That's when we'll be looking at some high upside guys, your Kenneth Gainwells and your Khalil Herberts and whatnot. I don't want to give away too much of our strategy, but we'll kind of go as we work along here. So if you're watching along and you want to join in the BBM3 entry, we are going to hop in that right now. This time of day, these usually fill pretty quickly. So let's take a look here. And this one's already filled. I mean, it's best ball time, man. These are filling quickly.
Yeah, even with the puppy going on, that kind of sometimes that surprises me that they fill so fast, these 25.
Yep. We got Noah in here. Love to see it. You guys can't stop the streams. I look forward to them every week. Thank you so much, Noah. Really appreciate that. And this is a fun show for us. I mean, a lot of people that aren't in the industry probably don't realize this, but a lot of times when you go on shows, the host gives you a list of things you need to talk about. Let's talk about players that are outside of this ADP, or let's talk about your bigger risers and fallers. And you got to prep and you got to put together stuff. Not this show, James. We just show up at 3 p.m. and wing it, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I always wonder. It's like, I don't know what we're going to do, but we always put a draft together. And I think because we're always in the draft streets, so we kind of know how these drafts unfold. So we're basically just showing you it's a typical draft. If we're in the lobby and drafting, this is how we're doing it. So we're just kind of coming up on, and hopefully we show some good talking points as we make our picks here. So
now James, I'm curious. Are you in Scott Fishbowl?
I am, yes.
All right. So I'm wondering, because I could not turn my best ball brain off. I mean, I was really hoping that I'd be able to do something a little bit different in SFB, but I drafted, by all intents and purposes, what looks like a best ball team. I triple stacked Jalen Hurts. I got Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, and Devonta Smith. I stacked Kyler Murray and Zach Ertz, Deshaun Watson and Donovan Peoples-Jones. I just couldn't help myself from stacking. Did you find yourself doing the same thing in SFB?
I'm only in the 3rd round, so I'm a ways behind you right now. So yeah, I just have Lamar and Stephon Diggs and Najee Harris. So that's where I'm at right now. So we'll see how it unfolds. But yeah, it's usually you draft so many teams and then it kind of goes, your redraft brain gets turned on from all the best ball drafting, and you're kind of on the same players. So
yep. Well, James, I'm taking a look. I read this wrong. I thought that it was filled when we joined, but we're waiting on 11 people and nobody else has even hopped in yet. You want to try a puppy 2? Let's see. I'm sure those are filling a little bit quicker right now. So let's we'll do the same strategy with the HeroRB, but let's see if we can get in one of these just a tad quicker.
Yeah, that's fine.
Again, still waiting on 11 here. Who knows? Maybe I got blacklisted by Underdog over the weekend.
No,
here we go. It's filling up.
Yeah, the puppy, they fill within like 30 seconds usually.
And here it goes. Yeah, we got two already, three already, four already. Yeah, this will fill quickly. So we'll kind of start talking strategy a little bit once we pull our pick here. But do you have a preferred spot? Do you like picking at the front of the first, back of the first, or do you just kind of deal with whatever's handed to you?
Yeah, I always said I like pick 105, and that just locks you into one of those the top 5 players I feel the strongest about, and then
Yep.
then I feel like you kind of hit a wall with like Eckler and Henry and the Diggs and Adams and Kelsey. Like I just don't know who to take out of that range, so
It's
I'd
really
prefer
tough
to.
to differentiate between those
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, and I don't if I'm gonna get a later pick, I'd rather just have the pick at the turn.
Yeah. And this is the one I think one rule that we have to go into this draft, unless he slides like all the way into the early first, we can't do Dalvin Cook. The last 2 weeks we've drafted Dalvin Cook in the first
No.
round. We got to switch it up a little bit, or all of our teams are going to be anchored by Dalvin Cook. And I love Dalvin Cook at that value. Go in at the 9th, 10th spot, but we'll switch it up a little bit for the viewers today.
You say that now, and he's just gonna fall right to us.
Right. I'm going to be sitting there staring at, Henry, Diggs, and Dalvin Cook and won't be able to help myself. But, we talk about it a lot. But I think it's really important to diversify, especially early in the draft. As you get later in the draft, that's when you can really start planting your flags and getting guys that you like. But if you're doing volume like you and I are, and I'm not even close to where you are, James, I'm going to do a couple hundred by the time the offseason's over. Are you 1,000 in yet?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe.
All right. Yeah. And at that point, I mean, if you put all your chips, I mean, let's say, you love Dalvin Cook and you got him 5, 6 spots ahead of his consensus ranking, and then you end up with 30, 40% exposure on Dalvin Cook. He tweaks his ankle and you are just done for. I mean, you can't really bounce back from something like that. So I think it's pretty important to diversify up front. Now, looking at this 103 pick, obviously we are doing hero running back. I mean, the two guys here are JT and McCaffrey. So we got to hope that one of these is Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, or Jamar Chase. If for whatever reason, JT and CMC are 1 and 2 off the board, I think what we'll do is take a receiver here and then wait until the back half of the second where we can get, hopefully Aaron Jones, Leonard Fournette, Saquon Barkley, something like that. Is that kind of what you're thinking, James? Or should we just reach for Eckler at 103 if that's the best available?
No, I think I'd go receiver. That's the
Yeah.
way I'd play it as well. Yeah, the second round's loaded with running backs, in my opinion.
Yep. Now Eckler is, the unanimous RB3, and I draft him. Well, here we go. We got McCaffrey at 103, so that is our hero. We won't be touching running backs for a little bit longer. But I gotta say, man, I don't know what it is about Eckler. I was beating the drum for him last offseason. He was my RB4 in PPR rankings, smashed my expectations, and now I'm a little bit colder on him. And he's heading into his age 27 season. We know he's a little bit undersized with Isaiah Spiller being there. We're looking at what is probably going to be some negative touchdown regression. What he had, was it 17, 18 touchdowns last year? I mean, something crazy. So Eckler makes sense there at 6, but I always just feel like there's so much risk baked into that pick.
I don't think it's risky. I just think it's like, I don't know. It's just is what it is, right? It's just you just draft them and you move on. It's not really exciting, but kind of exciting. I don't know. So I just have mixed feelings on it. But he's in an awesome offense, and so you can't complain about that. But I feel like it's kind of leaning more to pass heavy, but also that there's the competition behind him is just not great, I would say. So I think there's still a lot of volume that's going to come his way. Like even after he said that he wants to share some of those touches, I still think that they're going to be in close games. It's a tough division, and he's gonna get his touches. So I don't think it's an awful pick.
Yeah, I mean, not a terrible pick. I don't know, man. He just seems like that guy that everybody's so locked in on as RB3, and I just can't help but feel like there's going to be a little bit of a disappointment this season. I'm just a big fan of Spiller, and I think people are so quick to forget that we look back at February, March, and April takes. People were talking about Spiller being up there with Brees Hall. I mean, I saw a handful of people that had him as their overall RB1, and then he goes into the combine with an abductor strain, doesn't test well, slides into the 3rd round. Now all of a sudden he is just kryptonite to the fantasy community. Nobody wants to draft him, but he's still a very, very good running back. So I think that his involvement could be similar to what we saw with Melvin Gordon in the previous years, where it's a little bit more of a split. Eckler getting a lot of the passing work, but I think once they get in the short yardage goal line situations, we might see a lot more of Spiller.
Yeah, it's not a bad take. I mean, the Chargers are good, and there's going to be a lot of touches there, and there's going to be a lot of goal line chances. So, I mean, Spiller could slide in, of course. I think another name there at the top is Najee Harris. That's kind of getting disrespected. Like I would almost put him at the 6. Like I think he would be after those top 5. He would be my next guy. And
Yeah,
people are he's kind of sliding lately, so I don't know.
yeah, I kind of go back and forth on Najee. It was something like 45% of his points last year came from passing work. And I don't know if
Mhm.
he sees that same type of volume without Ben Roethlisberger there. Ben Roethlisberger is a check down machine, especially at this point in his career. And Mitch Trubisky, at least in Chicago, never really checked down much. And people are really quick to point to Tariq Cohen, who had 90 something targets that one year. But so many of those targets came on gimmicky plays or where he was lined up in the slot. It wasn't him, just being the safety valve out of the backfield. So I'm expecting that 94 targets to drop a little bit heading into next year, and that concerns me a bit. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's going to be getting close to 300 touches one way or another. They're going to run that offense through him.
I just see Benny Snell as the guy next in line. It's just like,
It's a
nope,
great way to put it.
he's getting all the work.
So do we go pretty chalky here? I mean, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, these are probably the two guys you have in mind, right? Are you reaching for AJ Brown, Keenan Allen, or Mike Williams ahead of any of these two?
No, those are the two names I think they have the highest upside.
Yep, we're getting chalky here. So do you have a firm stance between Tyreek Hill or T. Higgins, one way or the other?
I think Tyreek.
Yep, I am with you. And my immediate gut reaction to the Tyreek Hill trade was something you probably saw a lot of people cracking jokes about Tua's lack of arm strength and not being able to utilize him downfield. But then Jeff Bell just completely sold me with his article, and I've just been drafting as much Tyreek Hill as I possibly can ever since then. I mean, it just makes so much sense that they're going to use him in that Debo role in Mike McDaniel's offense. He's such a versatile player that you got to kind of expect that. Now here we are again, coming up here. I think AJ Brown is the obvious guy here, and he just went off the board. Do we want to reach down to Pittman? I know both of us have Mike Williams ahead of Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I go Mike Williams or DJ Moore. Those are the
Yeah,
two. Like I like DJ Moore, to be
yeah,
honest. Try to get
uh,
some shares. He's gonna rise. So,
yeah, and I'm completely with it. Now I know you
but
just did your best ball report. Gotta imagine Baker Mayfield was obviously one of the biggest risers, but did DJ Moore see a significant boost in ADP since that trade?
yeah, all the Panthers. Yeah, they were all on that list. Robbie Anderson as well, and yeah, Baker went up like 2 rounds. But I
Now
just I just realized that we had McCaffrey too, so maybe that was a bad move.
you know what? I kind of like this though, and we don't talk a ton about Week 17 correlation in the show, but this does open up an opportunity for us to really attack Tampa Bay with them playing each other in Week 17. We can go get ourselves Brady and Godwin and some of these other players in the Tampa Bay roster, and then we've got that Week 17 correlation, which you know say what you want about it, but if you're looking at Best Ball Mania as more of a weekly game than a season long game, we can really hit some heavy stacks and correlations there. So I do like that because even though we started off with two Panthers here, we're opening ourselves up to, an endlessly deep bag of skill players in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we get our minds just kind of locked on these theories too. Like you shouldn't take two players, different positions on the same team too. So things like that, you're not going to see a lot of people doing that kind of drafting. So yeah, so maybe that gives us some uniqueness as well
Yeah,
down
but
the
what
line.
happens if Baker just, this is a guy who is constantly his entire career. It's like he almost makes up reasons to fuel his fire. Now he actually has a reason to have a chip on his shoulder after the way that he was kind of pushed out of Cleveland. So what if we see Baker just put it together this year and all of a sudden Carolina with all these playmakers are this high flying offense? I mean, people we get so locked into, what have you done for me recently that we lock in on what Baker did in the second half of 2021 when he was playing through a torn labrum, which I can tell you is an unbelievably painful injury to have to deal with. So what if we see Baker rewind the clock a little bit and play like he did when he took his team to the AFC Championship 2 years ago?
I mean, I've been drafting Baker for a couple of years, so I just keep waiting for that kind of breakout. So I mean,
Yeah.
he's back in my player pool. So and he was even before he was signed, he was in a lot of my three quarterback builds. So I mean, the guy's a player. NFL quarterbacks, they're hard to find starters, and he's just going to see the field. It's like the same thing we see with Carson Wentz. He's always going to kind of have a job until he burns every bridge out there, right? So
Yeah.
he's getting close, but
Well, when we were eyeballing Pittman here, we got in the chat. We got Jordan Rain saying Pittman is booty. I don't know, man. I can't help myself. Like, what is there not to like about Pittman? 6'4", 90th percentile speed score, great at contested catches, gets a quarterback upgrade. No real competition for targets outside of Nyheim Hines and rookie Alec Pierce. I got Pittman, and I think you and I don't really see eye to eye on this one, James. I've got Pittman as a guy that I'm consistently taking in the third round without thinking twice. I've got him as my wide receiver 8 overall. You're a little bit cooler on Pittman, right?
I mean, he's there, but I'm taking DJ Moore. I'm taking,
Mike
Terry
Williams.
McLaurin and Mike Williams over him. But like, if I miss out on all those guys, he's next in line. Like, I don't feel bad about clicking. I'm not fading him. I just have a few similar players ahead of him. So, and I think he's actually pretty decent for these tournaments where you don't have a JT team. Like, he's your leverage, and I think we've talked about that with the Vikings in the past, right? We've went the running back route for the Vikings, so we're just doing the opposite here. We go with the receiving in Indy to kind of fade that JT when we don't get him at 101.
Yeah. Now here are our 3 picks out. Is there anybody else that should throw in the queue here? How are you feeling about Jerry Jeudy, Gabriel Davis? Or do you think these are the guys we should be looking at? Allen Robinson, George Kittle, DK Metcalf. Anyone else jumping out to you here? Because we're up again in a few picks after this as well. So I want to stick relatively close to ADP. Who do you like out of this list? There goes Allen Robinson.
No.
We got Kittle. We got Metcalf.
I kind of like Bateman and Lamar. He's trying to get that stack, but
I like that. Yeah, I'm okay reaching for that one a little bit. Let's hope that nobody watching the stream right now is going to snipe us on Bateman, because that's one that I haven't been able to pull off. The only time I've ever done it is if I have the pick at the turn. And if Lamar slides a little bit, but anytime I try doing this where I'm picking 9th or 10th or something like that in the 4th round, I reach for one of the guys and then the other never makes it back to me. So fingers crossed that, I threw Juju in the queue instead of Bateman. But yeah, fingers crossed that Bateman makes it back to us here, because that could end up being a huge stack to have this offseason or this season.
And even if you don't get it, like Lamar's, he's great standalone, so you're fine. It's like that's what I always try never to get so upset if you miss out on your stack, somebody snipes you. It's not the end of the world. You keep building, and by the end you're gonna recover from that. So
yeah. So we're going for the Lamar and Bateman one here, but we got Jordan in the chat telling us that we should have gone for the Juju and Mahomes stack. I don't know, man. I mean, we took Lamar Jackson straight up over Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think that's that crazy at all. Well, here it goes. Bateman drops to us. So we've got some nice stacking and correlation in these early rounds. So far, Tyreek is the only standalone guy, but if Tua slides to us at a realistic spot later, we can throw in Tua or Gesicki or something to work with Tyreek Hill as well. I like this. The Lamar Bateman one. That's not a stack that I have a lot of, but I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah, Bateman for a while, like he was pretty low, like start until that Marquise Brown trade happened, and his ADP just shot way up, right? So he's kind of hard to get right now, and he's hard with the players that he's bunched with at ADP. So most people prefer a lot of those other players. So you don't ever seem to be able to land on him as much unless you're higher on him and have him higher in your ranks.
Yeah. And I mean, realistically, Mark Andrews is probably going to be the leader in targets, but he's the wide receiver 1 there. And we saw Marquise Brown consistently putting out low end wide receiver 1 numbers. You got to imagine that the team had some faith in Bateman to take on a bigger role if they were willing to trade away Marquise Brown. We only saw small glimpses last year from Bateman, but he looked pretty darn good in what we saw. We got a little bit of time before our next pick, though, and this is a question from the chat that I like. Noah is asking us, what do you guys think about the optimal number of tight ends? I feel like the standard used to always be go 2, especially if you have an elite one, but there's been some data that 3 is often always the call. And James, this is something that you and I talked about before we even started the show. We talked about on Twitter. I am a 3 tight end guy through and through. I love getting 3 tight ends. Even if I get Kelsey or one of those guys earlier, I'm usually trying to end the draft with 3 tight ends. And that's kind of your thought process as well, right, James?
I don't know.
All right.
Honestly, I don't like tight end. So I'm honestly more 2 tight ends. So I think I'm a little bit opposite, to be honest. I don't usually hit the tight ends at the top very often. What I do is, like, once I hit around round 10, if there's tight end that falls, like sometimes you'll see 1 or 2 tight ends, they'll fall like a full round. I grab one of those, and then I kind of get another one in kind of the mid-range tight end. and just go with 2. I just don't like that position, and I don't want to put too much value in it. But yeah, I've seen all these things about the data and the 3 tight ends and everything like that, but
I,
I
I
don't
think the
like
way to
it.
look at it is like what you're hoping for out of your tight end spot is a touchdown. I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
if you got one of the big volume guys, you can have some huge weeks there. But if you're punting tight ends down the board a little bit, you're looking for a touchdown. So by drafting 3, you're just raising your weekly floor of the chances that one of those guys stumbles into the end zone. And then let's say 2 guys do go off, you got a flex spot. So one of those guys is just going into your flex. I feel like it's kind of a win-win scenario, and I've been doing that for a while. But it seems like other people are starting to do that pretty heavily, where you used to be able to grab Evan Ingram in the 7th round. Now, when you get or in the 17th round, now when you're getting to that 17th, 18th round, you're looking at, rookie tight ends. You're looking at Jelani Woods and you're looking at Jonnu
Mm.
Smith. You're not really getting good tight ends in those final rounds anymore. So, take my advice for what you will. But if I'm going 3 tight ends, I usually like to get all 3 of them. That's usually when I punt them down the board a little bit. And it's usually like rounds 12 through 16. That's when I'll just gobble 3 straight tight ends. And, I got specific guys that I'll go after. But typically for me, Evan Ingram and Hayden Hurst are about the deepest that I'll draft. I don't really like drafting tight ends after that tier.
Yeah, and we're on the clock here in a sec.
And we
So
talked about this with the correlation with Tampa Bay. Do we want to lean into that a little bit with this Russell Gage pick, or is anybody else really jumping out to you here? I mean, I love Drake London, but with our build, I feel like Russell Gage fits pretty nicely.
yeah, I think Russell Gage is a nice player.
Yeah, and he's definitely not one of my favorite players, but just trying to stick with what we got. We invested 2 of our first 3 picks into Carolina, so might as well lean into that Week 17 correlation, throw in Tampa Bay, and if we can get a Brady a little bit later, just the cherry on top there. So we missed out on all of the big tight ends. Next, we'd be looking at Hawkinson, Goddard, Knox, Ertz, that tier. And I think we could wait probably until the next round before we start looking their way. I think it's a little bit too early to take a second quarterback here, unless do we want to just lock in Tom Brady right now? So we've got that stack, and then we're done with quarterbacks, and then we can just keep pounding wide receivers for the next few rounds. Or do you think that's a little bit of a reach on Brady with guys like Burrow and Wilson and Lance still on the board?
I mean, just you talking it through, I don't think it's the worst idea. But I kind of like Drake London here. I'd prefer him over Brady.
And we
Just
talk about this a lot. It's just there's a slow learning curve with rookie wide receivers, but these are the guys that I think really help you, especially in the tournaments. He might not figure it out right off the bat, but with his pedigree and just how dominant he can be, he's a guy that could be putting up 25, 30-point weeks when they matter most in the playoffs. So yeah, Drake London is a guy that I've been targeting pretty heavily. There's a chance that Tom Brady slips down to us. Probably not. Either way, we're not too concerned about that, especially with paying up for Lamar. We're pretty set at the quarterback
yeah,
position.
that was my thinking. We paid a little extra for Lamar, and then we still have Tua and Baker in play as well. Like I don't think we need to kind of reach there for Brady. Usually people reach more for Brady, which surprises me.
And
He's
I think
probably
that's because of the stacks more than anything. Like realistically, Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr. I don't know if they're
yeah.
gonna. I don't know if Tom Brady deserves to be that far ahead of them in the rankings. He's just there because people love stacking Tampa Bay, and I think that's why he's getting drafted where he is in best ball. Come redraft season, it wouldn't shock me if he's much further down the rankings. And there goes Brady, so we're not going to get that one, but I'm okay with that. We can beef up these wide receivers a little bit so far. But Tyreek, DJ Moore, Rashad Bateman, Russell Gage, Drake London. I mean, Drake London, that's a heck of a wide receiver 5 right there.
No, I agree, and that gives you upside throughout the season. So he kind of offsets the Russell Gage. Like I don't know how much upside Gage would have, but I think Drake could hit those ceilings games where Gage kind of floats you week to week. So
Yeah. We got somebody asking us here, is Kirk Cousins a sleeper for a good backup? I wouldn't even say he's a sleeper for a backup. I'm okay drafting Kirk Cousins as a QB1 this year with Kevin O'Connell there. I think they're going to be throwing it quite a bit more. I really like Kirk Cousins this year.
yeah, he's so easy to stack too. There's so many options to stack him with. So yeah, he's definitely in the right up there with Derek Carr. Like I put him right in that range.
We got Noah in the chat here. Noah's the one that took Brady for us, and he says, "Thanks for leaving Brady. I was able to stack him with Evans." Well, you're welcome, Noah. I think that Brady Evans stack is going to be a little bit more beneficial than our Russell Gage Brady stack would have been.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I think I'd rather almost have like an Aaron Rodgers solo with no stack, and then like Tom Brady is one of my lowest owned players. I just can't draft him. So
Yeah.
I don't. It's probably a mistake, and I love the guy, but I don't want him for fantasy.
I mean, we've just been saying it for like 5 years now. Like, it never feels good drafting Tom Brady because you expect him to fall off that age cliff, and then he just keeps, just fighting off father time every single season. So we're up in a few picks here. Obviously, we're not looking at our RB2s yet. I just have this grayed out because I don't even want
Yeah.
to be tempted. I'd be looking at guys right now thinking we need to throw in an RB2, but we're going to wait a couple more rounds, at least past 8 and 9 here. We don't have a tight end yet, so let's throw Dawson Knox up here, and Zach Ertz. Those are two guys that I'm happy with either of those two. And then realistically, we're going to be looking at 6 wide receivers here. We could probably call it quits after 6 wide receivers if we tack on another one right here. Any of these wide receivers jump out to you more than Knox or Ertz?
I like Treylon Burks in the same way Drake London, but you don't have to make that pick because I think Sky Moore is similar, like all those kind of rookies. And I think there's still some more tight ends here coming up.
Yeah.
So
Let's
you
we
make
don't
this
have.
pick.
All right. Dawson Knox is a guy who I really this is more of just a leveling out my exposure pick. I don't have a ton of Dawson Knox because when looking at the board, when Dawson Knox and Zach Ertz are on the board, I take Zach Ertz every single time. Looking at like 35% exposure on Zach Ertz right now, and I just need to get that down a little bit. It's just way too much exposure on Zach Ertz for the time being.
So we had this conversation in one of my chats, and I think I've seen it on Twitter a little bit, just where Dawson Knox is kind of his ADP and Dalton Schultz. Like Dalton Schultz is what, like 30, 40 picks ahead of him, where I just kind of think they're both kind of the same players. So like I don't hate Knox. Like he's got the best quarterback, everything in his favor. So I think he's a sneaky, nice value. Like I'd much rather have Knox than Ertz, and I know you love Ertz,
I
and
do.
I love
And
Ertz
I
as the
mean,
person, the past player or whatnot. But I haven't been drafting him much this year.
I'm just saying, man. I mean, we might end up with both of them here. If Ertz slides, I'm doing it, man. And then we're done with tight ends. We'll still have one more quarterback, but there goes Treylon Burks. I like
Put him
Lockett
in.
here. Let's do it though. I like that double tap of Knox and Ertz. And I mean, really, the exciting thing, which I don't even think I really noticed at the time, Dawson Knox wasn't a guy that I was paying a ton of attention to prior to last season. But when you look at his workout metrics and his profile, like he's got the makings to be a pretty elite tight end in the league. Just pulling up his player profiler right here. His 40-yard dash, 85th percentile, speed score, 86th percentile, burst, 73rd, agility, 73rd, catch radius, 78th. So if you buy into player profiler and what they're selling with those measurables, he's looking fairly elite in almost every single category.
I actually like him, Dawson Knox, and Devin Singletary just to get my Bills exposure right now. So I think they're like my buys right now, and even McKenzie later, just like last round McKenzie, just because the price of Gabe Davis is just not going to fit my budget right now. And like Josh Allen's pretty tough to get as well. So, but I feel like those two give you still a lot of exposure to that whole offense and to Josh Allen. So I think Knox still has potential to be like a top 5 tight end this year.
Yeah, and I mean, how can you not buy into Buffalo's offense? Like, you just want to get as many pieces of the Buffalo offense as you possibly can.
No.
So we got Kyle in the chat here saying, "What about James Cook? Are you buying into James Cook?"
I mean, that's fine. If he falls to me, I'll draft him. Like he's not a player I'm Xing out of my player pool, but he's not a player I'm taking at his current ADP either. So he always has to fall for me to take him.
Yeah, I prefer.
And depending on your build too, right? Like if we have 3 nice running backs that are starters, like then I wanted James Cook as my 4th running back to kind of fit that late season, kind of how we've done in the past with Drake London kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Got a question here. Is King Henry still the king over Taylor? You can make an argument for it. You really can, but no. I mean, at 29 years old, coming off an injury, he's seen some decreased efficiency over the last couple of years. I mean, it's very likely that Derrick Henry could finish as the overall fantasy scorer again, but there's just way too much risk to think about taking him at 101. And I have seen it though. I've seen Eckler go 101. I've seen Henry go 101. You do enough drafts and you start seeing some crazy stuff.
Yeah, if you think Henry is going to play even like 13, 14 games, like, yeah, he could be because he has potential to get 20 touchdowns. I think he is a guy that's just going to get ton of touchdowns. So
Yep. I mean, who's
he
his
just needs to stay
competition?
healthy.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give the floor to you for a second, James. We got Bop in the chat saying, let's talk Michael Thomas. James, talk Michael Thomas. Tell this man why he should not be drafting Michael Thomas.
Oh, Bob, we've had all these. We've already had these conversations on Twitter, so I don't know.
I think he's
He's
giving you a
he's
hard
been
time.
he's been in the he's just giving me a hard time. So yeah, he knows the answer to that one.
Let's look at our next pick here because we can get some fun correlations with James Cook, with Buffalo. We already got Dawson Knox, so we can kind of get a little bit more of the Buffalo and stack that right there. But also with Tyreek Hill in Miami, playing against New England, we can get a little Ramondre Stevenson week 17 correlation as well. So those are two guys that I'd prefer here. And there goes James Cook. Let's see if Muggs leaves this to us. If he gets taken, who else do you have your mind or your eye on here? I think we definitely need to start hammering some of these running backs with upside. Ramondre Stevenson's my choice, but I like Rojo. I like Madison. I mean, I like a lot of the guys here.
I'd probably go Madison over Rojo, just because we know what he can be. But yeah, Stevenson would have been my pick there. So I was trying to
Stevenson would have been.
sneak
I wanted
there.
James Cook or Stevenson there, and we didn't get either of them. Muggs, if you are in the chat, screw you. But we'll take Madison, and we'll be happy with that. And we talk about this a lot. Madison is my I don't know if he's still number one, but he's got to be in my top three. He's up there with Khalil Herbert. I just cannot get enough of drafting Alexander Madison. You know what the upside is. He might be absolutely nothing, and he might be a weekly RB1 in the event of a Dalvin Cook injury. So, if you're doing this HeroRB build where you're drafting one running back early and then trying to build around that, these are the exact type of guys you want. Alexander Madison. You can get a guy like
there goes Rojo.
Yep, kind of figured that. So I do not like Dameon Pierce at all. If I'm being honest, I don't really like any of these running backs. Not crazy about Rachaad White. I do like Spiller a little bit, and I like Nyheim Hines a little bit. So I could take either of those.
You have to wait here because it's just there's nothing left.
I also really like Justin Fields as a QB2 here.
Yeah, let's get your Bears.
Cool. There we go.
I love the Lamar and Fields, to be honest. That pairing is just that's a fun QB like best ball pairing right there.
That's sky high right there.
And then you're just done there. We're done at tight end. We're pretty much done at receiver. We could go like eight running backs if you wanted.
Right. And maybe if there's another really good running back or wide receiver that falls, we can sprinkle another one in here. But really, Tyreek Hill, DJ Moore, Rashad Bateman, Russell Gage, Drake London, that's a heck of a core right there. So unless we get some wild value that fits in with some correlation or sacking or something, we're probably only going to add another one or two receivers, and we're just going to keep hammering these running backs here. So we're still up in 16 picks. Let's just kind of take a look down the board a little bit. I already threw up Isaiah Spiller, Nyheim Hines. Spiller, we talked about a little bit already. Eckler, when we were talking about the risk with the first round pick, I think that Spiller could bite off a little bit more than we expect. And then in the event of an Eckler injury, I mean, Spiller is the lead back on one of the best offenses in the league. Nyheim Hines is a guy who I really like, especially in half PPR and full PPR leagues. We saw him feast, finish as a top 20 running back 2 years ago with Phillip Rivers. Then Carson Wentz comes into town. Carson Wentz never checks down. Everyone forgets about Nyheim Hines, but now with Matt Ryan there, he should see some of that check down work again. Who are some other guys that jump out to you here, though?
Well, I like Henderson. I like Michael Carter. I like.
I think we like all of these
Gainwell
guys here.
And Herbert. Yeah.
So I mean, and this is the thing. If you can just keep stacking, and if we get 2 or 3 guys out of this list right here, it's not. And here, I'll give you a perfect example. Like I said, just did my Scott Fish Bowl, and in my Scott Fish Bowl, I went anchor RB. And funny enough, after dogging on Eckler, he just fell to a spot that I couldn't possibly pass up. So I got Eckler in the 3rd round, and then I share my screenshot, and everybody says the same thing when looking at my team. They go, "Oh my God, your running back 2 is terrible. How could you possibly trust Rashad Penny?" The thing is, I don't trust Rashad Penny, but I went Austin Eckler early, locked in that RB1, and my RB2 isn't Rashad Penny. It's Rashad Penny, Ronald Jones, Nyheim Hines, or Khalil Herbert. I took the same exact approach that we're taking in this draft.
Yeah,
and really, all you need is one of those guys to hit. Like I said, I could not shake the best ball brain. I was doing this Scott Fish Bowl, and the beers were flowing, and I just went into best ball autopilot mode. That's all I know at this point in the season.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, there goes Hines. So, taking the wind out of my sails a little bit there. Michael Carter is next up in ADP. None of these wide receivers I think are worth taking over a running back, especially with kind of where we're at right now. Do you like Michael Carter over Kenneth Gainwell? Because I prefer Gainwell personally.
I kind of do, but you could go Herbert here with Fields if you wanted to. Like I don't
I like
care.
that.
Like they're
I
all
like
kind
that.
of similar to me.
Yeah, I like that though. Thinking about stacking up with Fields, then we're not going to get Komet at this point. Probably not taking a late round flyer on Byron Pringle or Velas Jones because we've already got a pretty strong wide receiver core. So then that way we get a little bit of the correlation there. Yeah, I mean, well, we should get one of these guys as well, and then all of a sudden, we got some upside built into our receiving room, and it doesn't look so bad punting those that RB2 down the board.
And I think you could add Tyler Algier as well. I don't know. Just go to running backs, just the
Yeah,
running back tab. If there's anything else.
I think Daryl Williams, Gus Edwards. I mean, I like all these guys, and like I said, this is my comfort zone. This is how I prefer to build my teams. So these are the guys that I am drafting nonstop in my drafts that I'm not doing on streams anyway.
So those are like my avoid guys, like Gus Edwards, Daryl Williams, James
So why
Robinson.
Daryl Williams? And this is what I don't understand. Like last year, Chase Edmonds, and we're on the pick right here.
I think Gainwell's would be my pick here, easy.
Yeah. And honestly, these three right here, they fit into almost any draft. Even if you got two stud running backs off the bat, if you're completely going zero RB, hero RB, whatever it is, these three are three of my most rostered running backs. They fit into almost any build that you're doing, but specifically with what we're doing here, with the hero RB, I love all three of those guys. They are all pass catching backs. They got the upside, so I like that.
Well, it's surprising. It's surprising that ADP hasn't rose in any of the like Herbert and Gainwell. Like I just don't understand why they're not higher. And it's all year long. Like every draft, I'm drafting one of the other or both.
Yeah, and we just did our deep sleeper running back roundtable at Footballguys. And I think everybody wrote about Khalil Herbert. It's like every single fantasy analyst, any sharp best ball drafter, you ask them who one of the best late round running backs is, everybody's going to say Khalil Herbert. When I drafted him in the Scott Fishbowl draft, it was a live draft. We were all together and in person. As soon as I drafted Herbert, everybody went, oh, and like with the way people are hyping this guy up, you'd think he's going in the 10th, 11th, 12th round, and you can still just consistently get him in the 13th.
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the Bears hate, right? People just don't want to believe in the Bears this year. So
yeah.
I think
sure enough, I watched Sigmund Bloom and Cecil this morning talking about the NFC North. They started off with the Bears, and they were basically saying, don't draft anybody on the Bears. This team's going to be terrible.
That's why we like best ball, because somebody's got to score touchdowns, and we don't know what week, but yeah, they'll score for us that week on our roster. So
I threw the number out there, and I asked Sigmund and Cecil this live while they were on their show today. What are your thoughts? I said, over and under on Justin Fields, 600 rushing yards. What do you think, James?
I mean, I am betting on Justin Fields this year. Like, I just think his ADP 123, is that what it is? Like that.
Crazy.
I just don't understand why does Trey Lance, and why are we all in on Trey Lance but not Justin Fields? Like, I don't get that aspect of it. I get like San Fran's a better team and better players,
better weapons, better coaching,
like all that things, but maybe Justin Fields is better.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And I mean, I don't want to dog on your Eagles, but last year Jalen Hurts was like everybody's favorite sleeper, brand new head coach, no real weapons around him, and everybody was still confident betting on Jalen Hurts. I think the reason people are down on Justin Fields this year is because of Trey Lance. If Trey Lance wasn't there to have that juxtaposition and that conversation with, I think Justin Fields would be everybody's favorite sleeper. But because Trey Lance is such a similar profile and is in a slightly better situation, everybody's all gung-ho about Trey Lance, and it just pushes Justin Fields down draft boards.
No, and I like your comparison there to Hurts, because it could be the same. So we're on the clock here, so we can talk about it in a minute.
Yeah, this is an easy one for me with Daryl Williams, and I know you don't like Daryl Williams, but after we make this pick, we'll talk about it a little bit. Let's fill up the queue for the next ones as well. But the way I look at it with Daryl Williams, really quickly here, Chase Edmonds and James Conner were both putting up fantasy points last year. Then Chase Edmonds got hurt. James Conner took on this workhorse role. And the way I see it right now, I think that James Conner and Daryl Williams should be much tighter in ADP. I think James Conner is getting overdrafted. I think Daryl Williams is going to step right into that Chase Edmonds role, which was seeing almost 5 targets a game. So you're looking at a pretty high weekly ceiling for a guy that's going to be getting passing work in a really fast offense with a good pace of play. So Darrell Williams is a guy that could easily finish the season with, 80, 90, 100 targets. So I like Darrell Williams for that reason. But who are we looking at here? James Robinson's a guy I've been going after. Jamal Williams, we get that week 17 correlation with the little bear stack that we built. KJ Hamler, if we want to throw in one more high upside wide receiver.
Yeah, so I don't. You can go any of these guys. Like Jamal Williams or McKissick would probably be like kind of guys I would maybe consider. But
yeah, and I don't want to add a QB3 or a tight end 3 because we kind of beefed up a little bit already. But just for fun, let's take a look at what tight ends are available. Would you think about adding any of these guys to the core that we already have with Dawson Knox and Zach Ertz, or do you think that we're pretty set as is?
yeah, you like the 3 tight end guys, so yeah, that's your call. Like this is your account, this is your $5. So you want the 3rd tight end? Let's
Oh,
do it.
I'm invoicing you $2.50. We're splitting this one, James. I'll check your mail for that invoice. But
this
really,
might be a better draft than we've done in the past, to be honest. So I can give you $2.50. That's fine.
This one is good. This is the first time I'm not going to say, well, this is a weird build. We'll finish I'm feeling good about this one. I like it so far. And where we're at right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs and 5 wide receivers. Now, what do we want to do with these last few picks? We've got 3 picks remaining in this draft. We could keep hammering running back, but I think that, with McCaffrey, you got to assume that, you're making the right pick. You got to assume McCaffrey's going to play a full season. Having 5 high upside guys here. Well, I'd say 4 upside guys and then Jamal Williams, who's going to give you a reasonable weekly floor. I don't hate these running backs as is. I think that we could sprinkle in a tight end 3, a QB 3, a couple extra wide receivers. I don't think we need to be married to running backs at this point.
Yeah, you can go best player available. Like you can put Hayden Hurst in here, but I wouldn't put any other tight ends here. Like if he falls, that's fine.
Yeah. And that's what I said. My cutoff for me is Evan Ingram and Hayden Hurst. Once you get past those guys, Logan Thomas, Taysom Hill, Brevin Jordan, Mo Alley Cox.
Yeah,
I like those guys in the super flex puppy where we were going 20 rounds deep and only starting 2 wide receivers. But in this, I'm not crazy about any of those guys.
Yeah, I think it's wide receiver you want to go here, but I don't know if I mean you could go Baker. You could throw Baker in there, but I would wait till 18th round. If he's there, then you take him just because we have the guys.
Yeah.
Running back, I don't think. The only thing I would do at running back is maybe take a Carolina guy, like if Foreman's there, he would be. Yeah, you just already put him in the queue.
Just threw Foreman in the queue. Yeah.
I mean that makes sense. We just know McCaffrey the last couple of years. I know it's kind of like you're playing a little scared, but also it's kind of you're playing smart too. So especially with this build.
And I think handcuffing Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, that's a little crazy because you're spending 2 high picks. But this throwing in Deonta Foreman, you're spending a 17th to 18th round pick. It's not like you're doing anything crazy. Now, I got to say, man, some of these wide receivers are okay, but I'm almost okay taking Baker Mayfield here. We're already betting pretty heavily on the Carolina Panthers offense. Why not just go all in with Baker as a QB3? It might be a little bit of a reach, but also when we're looking at who's coming up here, 2 quarterbacks here, 2 quarterbacks here, there's a very good chance that we can take BPA with this pick and Baker still makes it back to us in the 17th.
Yeah, I think here you just want to be creative in these last few rounds. So it's however you want to, whatever story you want to tell here is, I get it. So I don't hate Baker here.
Yeah. And then we got a lot of targets later on too with, we can look at Duvernay and Prochet, we can look at Velas Jones, and we can look at Byron Pringle. So there's a lot of different routes that we can take here with the final picks. But yeah, let's go ahead and lock in Baker. Do we want to take Deonta Foreman with this next one and then go with some I got an idea, and I'm going to take this one straight out of your book. I think we're good on running back here. We don't have anybody else outside of Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Is Devin Duvernay still available? Yeah, let's go Devin Duvernay. And then this is a little trick that I learned from you, and hopefully nobody tries to snipe us here. But we talked about this in the first show we ever did together.
Well, there's even that Wallace is out there too, right? But you also have to remember we have Bateman already too. But you're basically banking on the whole Ravens offense.
Right. And the other thing we can do if we don't want to go this route, we can do Velas Jones and Byron Pringle. I don't know if I'm quite as crazy about that stack.
Mm. No, it's your call. I don't.
I mean, we locked in Baker.
You got Terrace Marshall too, so you have a lot of ways. When you have 3 QBs, you have so many ways to stack.
Yeah, let's go with Duvernay here. I like that. We'll throw in Prochet as possible if he makes it back around to us. Put Deonta Foreman back in here. Yeah, we got Terrace Marshall, Byron Pringle. I mean, there's so many options that we can go now that we've got the 3 quarterbacks here. And then one thing I'm interested in seeing.
Yeah, Tannehill still on the board.
Sean Watson was drafted in this draft, so I'm sure you saw the report coming out today. Some people are speculating that it might not be the best sources. I guess this beat reporter has a little bit of a history, but report came out today that he might be looking at 4 to 6 games. So let's just put on, hypothetical hats here. Let's say that later tonight it's announced that Deshaun Watson is suspended for 6 games. Where does he land in your rankings?
For tournaments, yeah, you definitely want him in there because he could be the guy that breaks the tournaments late. So I don't know where I'd put him. He would probably be 3 quarterback builds for me and probably like around 12-ish, 12 to 14 in there.
So I said this in base camp for anybody listening to the show. That is our internal discussion that we use over at Footballguys. And I said that I would take Deshaun Watson suspended for 6 games ahead of Trey Lance. And I mean, that's the way I look at it, because like Trey Lance, his best case scenario, everything falls into place and he ends up being a very good player. His ceiling is pretty much what you're expecting from Deshaun Watson every single week. So I think even if he is suspended for 6 games, I think there's a very reasonable argument that you can make to still draft Deshaun Watson as a top 10 quarterback.
I actually like Watson. Say you take Aaron Rodgers. Wait, his bye is week 14. So you just take 2 quarterback build. Take Aaron Rodgers and then take Watson, something like that. And like Fields has a week 14 bye.
Yeah.
No, really. And even like Kyler's week 13. You take Kyler with Watson. That's pretty fun. That one.
Yeah.
And, like even if he gets a 10, those guys. Yeah, and if he gets a 10-game suspension, you're still you're okay.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see where he starts creeping up the draft boards here in these next few weeks, because at first we heard that Justin Anderson was pushing for a 2-year suspension. Then we hear an indefinite suspension. Then we hear a 1-year suspension. Then we hear a 12-game suspension that the NFLPA declined. And now we're hearing rumors of a 4 to 6-game suspension. It almost feels like the general public is just being buttered up for a slap on the wrist. I mean, just trying to read between the lines here and make sense out of what we're getting. I mean, it sounds like there's going to be a pretty soft suspension coming, and it almost seems like the NFL is just going through their media circus to try and soften that blow a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to speculate on that one. So
it is.
I would say 8 games, maybe 8 to 10 games. That's kind of where I lie on that.
Yeah, but in these tournaments where it's so important to hit at the end of the final seasons, it could still be pretty valuable.
Yep.
So here we are with this last pick coming up. We did get Duvernay, so I kind of like Prochet here. It would be fun to stack these guys up with, but let's just go all in on Baltimore. We got Rashad Bateman, we got James Prochet, we got Devin Duvernay, and we got Lamar Jackson. I mean, we're going to be getting points out of this Baltimore offense. Do you think that's overkill? Would you rather pivot? I'll let you make this one. Do we pivot to a Chicago guy, or do we take Duvernay, or do we take Prochet?
I'm a Pringle guy, but that's just I like your way of thinking too. So
I like it though. I mean, with the 3 quarterbacks, that was a pretty heavy investment on, and we didn't get Gus Edwards, right? I know we were looking at him at one point.
No, we did not.
Yeah, so I think with Bateman and Duvernay, we're looking at it. I mean, there were some reports coming out that Prochet might possibly be the number 2 guy in Baltimore, but James, I got to say, man, it took us 4 weeks, but I think we finally drafted a team that I can get behind.
That's because we got Zach Ertz finally, right?
Right. Let's see if we can pull this one up real quickly. Is it down at the bottom?
It should be the top one.
Oh, the top one. Nope.
Oh no, I'm wrong. Or you gotta wait. You gotta wait to the. Yeah, and you gotta wait to the draft to be all the way over too.
Which I believe it is. Yeah, it just wrapped up because we were the second to last pick.
Yeah,
here it is. The puppy 2. There it is.
Yep.
So yeah, let's look through this one right here. First of all, I want to take a look at the board and see where Watson went. I'm just trying to get a feel for that with this new news coming out here.
I got to give a shout out to Rorschach as well. He's one of my favorite drafters out there, so he's pretty sharp. So if you see him in the lobby,
let's take a look at his team and see who he ended up with. Najee at 11. We already talked about how that was a great, and then just gobbled up some more value here with Kelsey at 2. That's a nice one. We were dogging James Conner a little bit, but in the late 3rd, I mean, I'm not against taking Conner there, and then Travis Etienne. So he went he must have been listening to what we were doing and said, well, I'm going to load up on all the running back value then, because Najee Harris, James Conner, Travis Etienne, he might have just ended with those 3 running backs right there. Darnell Mooney, Amon St. Brown, Hunter Renfrow, Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, and then he waited all the way until the 10th round to even grab another running back after that.
Yeah, he's a strong drafter, so if you ever see him in the lobbies, look out.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that fear every time I sat into a lobby and I see your name, James. But I was trying to see it here, and I don't see. I must keep overlooking it, but I am not seeing Watson for some reason. He must have gone, huh? It's Trevor Lawrence, Winston, Jones, Goff, Baker, Mac. Oh, Deshaun Watson. Yeah, so he went just a few picks before Mac Jones and Baker Mayfield. And that's one other thing that I'll say, James, is, I was kind of giving you a hard time for your infatuation with Mac Jones on the first couple of episodes that we did. But I did a show with Nate Liss recently, and he completely sold me on Mac Jones. And he made a strong, very compelling argument. And what his argument was is that if you look at the efficiency numbers, he had almost identical numbers to Joe Burrow. And I said, no, there's no way. He did not put up similar numbers to Joe Burrow. If you look at his average depth of target, if you look at his pass volume, if you look at his intended air yards per pass attempt, just about everything was identical to Joe Burrow. The difference is Joe Burrow has Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins ripping off these huge chunk plays after the catch, and Mac Jones doesn't have that. So, I mean, basically the argument he was making was from a dynasty standpoint, but he says go out and buy Mac Jones now, because if they add a guy like Kayshon Boutte or Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's going to skyrocket in value the same way Joe Burrow did. But after talking with you and after talking with Nate Liss and a few other guys, I am reevaluating my stance on Mac Jones.
Yeah, I think he just gets plugged in there because of that one awful weather game that he threw 3 passes, and that's all that people are going to remember. But I mean, for a rookie QB, he led that team to the playoffs, and maybe he's just a plug and play kind of quarterback and just there, but he seemed to me like he had a little something to his game. So yeah, I like him later, and I think he's a buy. So yeah, I'm glad you're on that side.
Finally there. Yeah, maybe we'll draft some Mac Jones in next week's show, but hopefully we don't get in trouble here. I just realized that during this entire show we had the Audible background on, so hopefully we don't get a cease and desist letter from Sigmund and Cecil after the show.
Yeah, we'll never live up to their status. So,
but as always, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe at youtube.com/footballguys. Not only do we have this show coming at you every single Tuesday at 3 p.m., but we've got the Audible, the Dynasty show, the Dynasty newsletter show. We've got our FBG shorts. We've got the mailbag show, just more content than you could possibly imagine. Starting next week, we're actually going to be putting this show out on podcasts as well. So we'll be sure to start sharing that link in the YouTube description. Follow James on Twitter at Eagles with 3 Z's at the end. You can follow me at Dave Kluge. That's Kluge. And finally, if you haven't already signed up for Underdog, be sure to do that today. If you use promo code Footballguys, they will give you a 100% deposit match up to $100 on your initial deposit. So you can join there, play with some house money, and find James and I in the lobbies. James, before we sign off here, anything else?
Yeah, just the normal. So just get out there, drafting puppy 2 this week. It's going to be full by the weekend, so that's your last chance. Maybe after the stream, maybe I'll jump in like 5 or 10 of them. So if you guys want to draft some more with me, that'd be fun.
Awesome. And we, as always, will be sharing this one out on social media. And James, this is the first one that I've actually felt a little bit proud about to share. This was a fun team that we drafted here. I really like it.
It's probably our worst team.
Probably at the end of the season, we'll look back at it and probably think that. But hey, that's just how it goes. Well, James, thank you for your time. Thank you for everybody that tuned in, and we will see you next week.